Hi, Santa. Hello, everyone. Good afternoon. Welcome to this Alumni Nigeria Town Hall meeting. It's a pleasure to be here. Hi, everyone. Okay, welcome. So thank you so much for signing up. Thank you for turning up to meet with us today. Still kind of waiting for people to join. Might give it another minute, if that's okay, just to allow more people to join. Well, good afternoon. Okay, all right. I'm glad to hear, Umar. Okay, so just not to cause any more delays, since you're here, I think we'll go ahead and start. First on our agenda is really just to introduce all of the panelists today. So I'm going to stop sharing screen very briefly so we can just focus on introductions. Okay. And I am happy to go first. My name is OG. My full name is Uwogo Ine, but everyone calls me OG. And I am the country director of Nigeria for Nexford University. I know people have asked, what does that really mean? So let me try to explain what that means. So country director, at least, for Nexford University, really, ultimately, I'm the brand custodian for Nexford University in Nigeria, right? So my job here is really to be a brand ambassador for Nexford University. But of course, there's work behind that. So outside of being a brand ambassador, there's a lot of growth consolidation that needs to happen. Nigeria is a very important market in Nexford, pretty much our biggest market. So it's a very important market, and we definitely wanted someone to consolidate all of our growth and in the Nigerian market. So my role is very largely focused on brand, is very focused on growth. So it's important that I kind of talk about that, define that. So if you're wondering what my role is, that is ultimately my role. There are other channels. As you know, Nexford University is a US university, it's a global university. Oh, so my voice is low. Okay, let me move closer. Because you can let me know if my voice is low for everyone, okay? But as you know, because Nexford is a US, okay, you can hear me fine, good. So because Nexford is a US university, it's a global university, serving a global market, there are several channels for dealing with certain challenges. So a country director doesn't take away any of that because it's a global institution, certain operations are centralized, and those remain, right? Those remain, and having a country director doesn't change that. So it's important that we clarify that. But yeah, so my role, but I'm here, I'm accessible like every other person in Nexford. I'm here for if you want to escalate things, but my role doesn't replace any of the other communication channels that you have. My primary goal is really to connect with everyone and all of us together be great brand ambassadors for Nexford University and work on consolidating the growth that we've had so far. So thank you very much. It's a pleasure to take on this role. I joined in September and it's been a great team. I've met some of you, saw some of you at graduation. So it's just really been awesome. Thank you so much for the opportunity. I'll hand over to Kathy to introduce herself.
Thanks, OG, and we're very happy to have you here. It's been great to partner with you, and I know you're going to do a lot of work on the ground and partnerships there and really support Nexford in Nigeria, and we really do appreciate that. I'm Kathy Plunkett. I'm the Chief Academic Officer for Nexford University, and if there are recent grads on the phone, I was at graduation as well. It was a very fun day for me. It's really exciting to see all the hard work that goes on behind the scenes. When you see people walk across the stage and earn their degree, it just means so much. So we're excited to talk to you today. We're going to try and stay in touch. And the topics are really related to different things we've heard from alumni or other questions and things that continue to come up. We're trying to just present some information and stay in touch with all of you. Lebo, are you going to introduce yourself?
Yes, sure. Thank you, Kathy. Hi, everyone. My name is Lebo David. I'm sure you all know me as Lebo. I'm the Alumni Communications Manager. And yeah, my role is basically engaging with the alumni community. I'm basically your voice from the alumni channel through to management. If you have any comments or suggestions on any aspect of that is pertaining to Nexford or any sort of communication that we have with you. And again, it was a major pleasure meeting you all at the graduation ceremony. I think quite a few of you were not aware that, okay, this is Lebo, this is the face to the name. So I had quite a few grads saying, I never knew that it was you. So, but hopefully we'll meet again at the next graduation ceremony. Thanks, Kathy. Thanks, OG.
And if I can do a brief introduction. This is Jennifer Bangura. I'm sorry, I'm not feeling well today, so I'm off camera. And I'm your Director of Career Innovation, and I'm here to support all of our Nexford alumni and learners to ensure that they have the tools and skills they need to pivot and promote in their career during their time at Nexford and beyond once you complete your degree. So really happy to be here.
Hey, thank you, everyone. And I hope everyone heard that. It's good for you to start to put faces to the names, and we're always here to support you. So let me pull up our agenda for the day. Second. Okay. I'm just going to share my screen now and go to the agenda for the day. So the reason we call this webinar, it's been a while since we've been in touch with you as a community. There's me coming in, and again, it was just important for us to connect. So today's meeting, really, we've already done the introductions as the first agenda item. And the second thing I'm going to do now is just walk you through what we intend to talk about today. We intend to just visit our mission again. I think sometimes when we have conversations, it sounds like we're not all on the same page about, who Nexford University is and what we're about. So we thought we'd just have a reshare on that. We also know that for some people, they are new alumni. So it's important to also just remind everyone what being an alumni is. And then, of course, you've come to learn with Nexford. We know some of the reasons you've done that has to do with finding jobs, whether nationally, locally or globally. So we thought Jennifer would join and just share some of her thoughts in terms of getting ready for those sorts of jobs. We want to really get through the content so that we can take as many questions as possible. So we're not going to spend too much time on all of that, but we want to, at about 1:35, we want to get into the Q&A session. So hope that's okay. So I would hand over to Kathy now to please just help us remind us. She's been with Nexford for a while. Tell us about the Nexford mission.
Thanks, OG. I'm happy to talk mission because surprisingly, we talk about this all the time. We talk about it in our exec team meetings. We talk about it in our global meetings, but our mission is to enable greater social and economic mobility across the world. So that means allowing people, graduates, to move if that's what they want to do. Providing access to high quality, affordable, dynamic online education that prepares them for the global workplace. So this mission drives what we do. We do when we're talking about new programs, when we're talking about adding different services, we talk about, does it meet what our social's doing? Our mission is doing? Does it allow us to provide high quality, affordable education? Can we provide it across the world? And can we give opportunities for our learners then, because of the education they've earned, to start looking for jobs globally? And it's important to us to do that. Recently, we've launched a Master of Science in Digital Transformation program. We are getting ready within days to launch the Master of Science in Business Analyst program. And we have just recently submitted one that we're very excited about. Unfortunately, I can't give you a launch date for that because we've just submitted it both to our licensure and our accrediting body. It's called a Master of Science in Entrepreneurship. That's something that we've heard from a lot of our learners they're interested in. So as we listen to our global learners, we hear what they have to say, and we continue to keep our costs down and provide them with programs that will help them in whatever career path that they're interested in taking. So I put in this slide that this really drives decisions. So as an executive team, we've been hiring some different people. And one of the things we always talk about, and one of the things we listen for when we're interviewing candidates is, do they understand our mission? Does it mean something to them? Because if they don't understand our mission, or if that has no meaning, if they haven't even paid attention to it, then we know it's not the right fit. So this is something that really does drive us. OG, will you go to the next slide? So I want to talk a little bit about licensure and accreditation, and some of you may have heard me talk about this before, but I still think there's a little bit of confusion as to what it really means. So we were licensed by the Higher Education Learning Commission. That license is what allows Nexford to confer degrees. That's why we could confer degrees before we got accreditation, because we don't need accreditation to confer a degree. That means to say, to grant a degree to a learner. And we keep that licensure up every single year. We submit all of our new programs to the HELC whenever we have them, because they have to approve them first. And they're the ones that allow us to say, congratulations, you've earned this BBA degree, you've earned this MBA degree. So that for a United States institution, the licensure is critically important. Then over and above that, we chose to get accreditation. And we went with the Distance Education Accreditation Commission. The reason that we did that is because they are the premier accreditor of distance education programs. Not everybody understands distance education programs, and not everybody approves distance education programs. So why do that, right? So accreditation communicates quality. So when people look at a program, look at a university, I know when I did it with my children, I looked to see who accredited them and if they were accredited. And it says that they have met a certain set of standards. The DEAC actually has 12 standards. And we have to meet all 12 of those standards to earn our accreditation. And it also says to you, we've taken our academic programs through a level of review, and they look at everything from program outcomes. They look at how our support services are. They look at our assessments. They look at all things that have to do with that program. That's why you heard me say a minute ago, we just submitted new programs for review. So it isn't just a one-time review. Anytime we have a new program, we submit it to both our licensure and our accreditor. And I think accreditation is a little bit different in some other countries than the United States, because oftentimes it is controlled by the government. In the United States, accreditation is not controlled by the government. There are accrediting bodies that are recognized. So they go through a review process with the government, and the government says, yes, we like your standards, we like your processes, we approve of how you're reviewing your institutions. That's the government piece of that. It goes to the accrediting body. Then the accrediting process is a peer review process. So when we had our site visit a couple of years ago, we had several, I think we had 6 different people visit and meet with us and review all 12 of those standards. They then sent it back to the DEAC, and the DEAC said, yes, we're going to accredit them. So that's what gives us that quality. But in the United States, we don't have to have that accreditation for you to earn a degree. So I just wanted to make that distinction because we talk about it a lot. The last thing I want to say about this is I've had emails from learners saying, when are you going to get WES accreditation? WES isn't an accrediting body. WES doesn't approve anything. What WES does is they review our degree against different things. So one of the frustrations I know for some of our alumni have been, they were interested in immigrating to Canada. And with an MBA that's from an accredited institution, that should move them up and make it easier for them to immigrate. Wes reviewed our degrees and said that they were not equal to a regionally accredited institution. And that's based on what Canada wants. That's not based on what Wes wants, not on what the United States wants. But in Canada, to be able to use your degree, you have to have attended a regionally accredited school. We're not regionally accredited. That Wes doesn't make that decision. They make that decision based on what Canada, the country, told Wes whether our degree would be equal or not. So Wes is not an accreditation. We're not seeking Wes because you don't seek Wes accreditation. And for most learners, you don't need a Wes review because you have a US diploma written in English. If you want to use it, and interestingly enough, I know this doesn't sound right, but we are working with several Canadian schools right now that will accept our accreditation. It's the Canadian government that is saying for immigration purposes, we won't. So you can use your Nexford transcript to be able to enroll in other programs. Most universities in the United States will recognize it and approve it themselves. But again, that's up to the receiving institution. So I just wanted to clarify some of those things that come up oftentimes about licensure, accreditation, and Wes. What's our next slide, please, OG? The last thing I want to talk about, and I think OG did a nice job of this already, so I won't spend too much time on it, but we do have a global audience. So when we develop our programs, we're looking to ensure that the education that we're providing prepares learners around the world to be able to get new jobs, to be able to get new careers. We're not just preparing people, learners from the United States or from Nigeria or from South Africa or from Kenya. It's not a different program for all of those different locations. We create our programs for a big global audience because we think that education should be able to prepare people for whatever that they want to do next and shouldn't be country specific. So I think that's all I wanted to cover. OG, was there anything else that you wanted to talk about here?
I think maybe something I would just add, and maybe I'll take this opportunity to respond to some of the comments I've had. So since I joined, I'm sure some of you know that you've sent me emails, you've given me calls, and some of the things that are concerning, I would say relate to our BBA alumni. And then you've had concerns around, NYC, for example. The reason I'm jumping in here is because of, things are contextual, right? And sometimes when that context is not understood, then the expectations are misaligned, right? So to our BBA alumni, it's important for you to understand our mission. It's important for you to understand that, Nexford University is established to serve a global audience. Therefore, there might be some very local, peculiar situations that are beyond Nexford University's control. And when the expectation is for Nexford University to jump in and do those things, then it can create frustrations. So again, like I said, I joined last month, and I know that this is a conversation that's been going on the NYC side, for example. We understand the concern, we understand the frustration, and we have definitely reached out to make inquiries. And just in case there's been any misinformation in the past, I think I would like to just clarify that, again, is one of those things that is so peculiar to Nigeria that Nexford University doesn't really have control over. So the requirement for NYC is backed by a Nigerian law, but it's kind of beyond the scope of what Nexford University's promise is, right? Which is this equipping you for, global opportunities with, job ready skills, relevant skills. So that is the scope of our work. It's very difficult for a university, an international university, to go country by country and begin to troubleshoot laws in those countries. It's not practical. It's really beyond scope. And the influence is greatly limited because it's just not your place. right? And just so you know, since I've joined, I've definitely been to Abuja. We've asked all the questions because we wanted to be able to, you know, somehow take your concerns and make inquiries. And the reality is the NYC requirement is backed by Nigerian law. And there is not much Nexford University can do about that. And I'm sure you and I will live in this country. We've seen the situation with, even with sometimes politicians and the challenges they have. And even that hasn't been able to change the situation. So the expectation that Nexford University can somehow change the Nigerian law, that's very difficult. So I just wanted to create that context with regards to your expectation so that there's, that frustration isn't there. But having said that, I think what's important is to not then, because of that hold up, lose the bigger picture, right? You chose Nexford University for a reason. And when you look at its promise, getting you that high quality, affordable, globally recognized education. And I think it's delivered on that promise. So it's taking that promise and saying, how do I use this to create opportunities for myself, right? So whether that is the entrepreneurial route, whether that is, I can imagine, I've spoken to certain employers who are also frustrated by the same thing. And then they find ways to ensure, because they are also focused on getting the best talent, right? So it's about also, how do you seek out those opportunities where the NYC is not a hurdle? But what is important is for us not to have misaligned expectations where Nexford University is expected to somehow change, a Nigerian law. And then we, from what we've seen, it just looks like, whatever the NYC does, it needs to be advised by the law, by the National Universities Commission, and there isn't much influence that Nexford University has over those two agencies of government. So I think it was just important to clarify that. But again, if you have questions in the Q&A session, I'm happy to take them. Thank you, Kathy. Okay, so over to you, Lebo.
Thank you very much, OG, and welcome everyone again. So basically, we're going to discuss being an ambassador with Nexford. Now, as part of our alumni, being an ambassador means that you as the alumni, you are a representation of the Nexford brand. Now, as a representation of the Nexford brand, we do understand that things may not always go well. However, it is very important not to demarket the Nexford brand during difficult times, because as you progress throughout your career, you will make meaningful connections, seeking investors, seeking business partners, and these are the certain qualities that they look for in a potential business partner, how you represent yourself and how you represent the brand as well, through good and through difficult times as well. So it is very important to be a brand, to represent yourself and represent the brand in a positive manner. Now, in terms of communicating with us, we do have multiple channels for various communications that you need to make with us. Firstly, if you have any transcript requests, we have the registrar's office email address. As you can see it on the screen, it's register@nexford.org. And we do have a designated time frame for these requests. And also, if you have a request for a transcript to be sent through to an institution, you can also email directly to the registrar's office. And for an academic reference, you can email the success team at success@nexford.org. That is for any academic reference, or if you have a certain professor that you would like a reference from as well, you can feel free to include that professor's name and surname in the email as well. If you have a referral, for example, we do have the NXU refer channel that you can use using the link on the screen, which is the referral program, and you will be credited for every referral. However, this only happens once the learner is fully enrolled and has completed the first month of their program. If you have any other questions on other referral platforms that we do utilize, you can also email unext@nexford.org. And for any alumni related inquiries, you can email myself at alumni@nexford.org, or US graduation inquiries, you can reach out to me at alumni@nexford.org. And for any Nigeria graduation inquiries to pick up your certificate or to collect a yearbook, you can email nigeriagraduations@nexford.org. Now, please do bear in mind that there is an SLA for feedback, which is 24 to 48 hours. However, if you haven't received any feedback, please feel free to reach out to me. Some of you do have access to me directly on WhatsApp, so you know that I am available to assist you. And let's just remember to represent the brand, each and every one of us. Wherever we go, we are NXU brand. Thank you very much. And over to you, Jennifer.
Thank you so much, Lebo. OG asked me to talk about job preparedness, which is something I love talking about. And I found this visual, or rather these steps that I put into a visual, that I think are really important. And I have it in a nice cycle here. Of course, these, imagine arrows in between all of the different bubbles. You know, you hop from one to the other. It doesn't necessarily happen in order. But when we think about where we are at Nexford, you know, that's the education and training circle here. And job preparedness is something that is it's just like your lifelong learning. It's something that we're all experiencing in an ongoing way. A World Economic Forum report came out in July that said, you know, in the next 5 years, 44% of the skills that we will need to succeed in our jobs are going to change. So that is one of the reasons too why Nexford exists, for this relevance and industry relevance. But I want to encourage you to keep this mindset that we're never done learning. We're never done in our job search and in this journey. So you can see here, I mean, exploration is at the top. This is when you have an idea for a field that you're interested in, maybe becoming a product manager or a business analyst, or you know, moving into digital transformation, like we, you know, those are some of the things that we're seeing as trends. So then you start exploring. You look up companies that have that focus. You talk with friends who have jobs in those industries or with companies that have that focus. Then you might, pursue education and training to reinforce, you know, build your skills, move into that skill development. So beyond a broader general, you know, degree, you're building in specific skills that you want to build to be able to be successful in whatever career path it is that you've chosen. Then you gain experience, or, you know, again, simultaneously, you're building experience, building that network, and then conducting a job search and advancing, hopefully, in your career. And I want to highlight, maybe some of you saw on LinkedIn, I'm super proud and excited for one of our alumni, Beatrice. Beatrice, you're here. I see you in the participant list. I do have to call out one of our alumni who just is the example of what job preparedness can really look like in practice. And when we are sharing insights and advice on behalf of Nexford, I hope you know, we have all been in the same place that you have been in terms of looking for a job. We have all been job seekers ourselves, right? And we want to develop and build our own empathy. And many people will reach out to me and say, can you give me a job? I want a job, give me a job. That is very difficult to do. Doesn't happen for many people that they are presented with jobs. Maybe when you start to get at the really experienced or elite level of your career. For many people, identifying new opportunities and landing them comes from honing those skills that we aren't always explicitly taught in school. We're going to be changing that at Nexford. We have some really exciting things coming down the lane that will be available to our alumni as well. But why I'm highlighting our alumni Beatrice is that, we met and talked about her job search. I took a look at her resume, made some, gave some light feedback and edits. And then we really spent 30 minutes talking about how to build her Nexford network. That means, like, I'm looking at the 71 now of you who are in the room, right? And connecting with one another and turning to people who understand your education and your life experience and can speak the same language, as it were, right? So I did not give a job to Beatrice, and no one suggested that I did. But what I did do is I talked with her about, like, how do you find people who have similar interests to you on LinkedIn? And I've actually shared a lot of these tips and tricks in previous webinars that we have on an ongoing basis on how to make the most of LinkedIn. Sometimes I know too that one-on-one sessions really make things click. So we walked through that. She identified, this one alumni who had a very niche, similar skill set, reached out, and then that person directed her, said, you should try looking at like this company, or use these tips and tricks on LinkedIn. And then from my understanding, and we're gonna have Beatrice, like we have to chat again, but we've already talked about having a webinar with you and that other alumni. But now she started her new job on Monday. And from my understanding, it's a hybrid role. So it's partially remote, partial in person, which sounds great for getting a best of both worlds. Is it easy? Is it overnight? No. For all of us, a lot of times we look at LinkedIn, we see people make those posts. I'm thrilled to announce my new job. And it looks like that whatever happened for them, they just, went to bed last night and woke up and had a new opportunity land on their digital plate, right? That's definitely not what happened. We know behind it, it's a lot of work. It's a lot of relationship building. And I love what Lebo said about how important it is for how we treat one another and how we talk to one another, how we support one another. Those are things that people remember and they really matter. And something that I firmly believe as the future of work, introduces artificial intelligence and different tools and platforms, right? I think the future of work is really being a human, is humanity, and being a person that somebody can turn to and depend on, and who's going to be authentic and a real someone who will support them, in a way that maybe technical programs are not able to. So I'm sharing this visual here so that we can all be reminded of different things that we can be doing along the way. And again, sometimes it feels like, and I talk with people who really want to just focus on like, oh, my resume is not perfect, or I don't have all the right experience, and they only solely focus on their career materials. They don't spend any time building up their network of people who can support them in their job search, or, and it's really a both and. You need to be doing all of these different things in order to have a successful career. And so thank you to everyone who's sharing questions. If you can put them in the Q&A, and I will send it over to our next slide. So thank you so much for allowing me to be here, and I'm looking forward to future webinars on our career related topics.
Jennifer, I don't know if you talked about all this somehow on the first slide when it comes to person presentation, attitude, written, verbal. Do you think that's all covered already?
Well, I'm happy to, yes, I'm happy to touch on this as well.
Yes, please.
So, many of our, Kathy mentioned this at the beginning, and that when we are welcoming Nexford learners, we are equipping you with, we're making it possible for you to study online. We also want you to have, make it possible for you to work online, right? And to be able to have that flexibility that we know a lot of people appreciate, no matter where you live in the world, of being able to work from where suits you, right? With that, for all of us, right? Like, even you look at this call, OG's in Nigeria, Kathy's in the United States, Lebo is in South Africa, I'm in Malawi in Southern Africa. And we represent different cultures, different lived experiences, right? It is incumbent upon all of us. That means it is, it's a requirement for all of us to think about how we are interacting with people from different countries and cultures around the world. Even within the United States, where I am from, we have different cultures by region in the country. And I'm sure this is true wherever you are from, right? Just because you're from one country doesn't mean you it's homogenous or represents one experience. When we're thinking about positioning yourself for a global opportunity, we all have to sit back and ask ourselves, how am I presenting myself? How am I putting forth who I am? Because, no pressure, but when you become a part of the Nexford community, you're now representing Nexford, right? So now you've become, I get excited about it, but, we are all a representation of ourselves, our families, our communities, our education institutions, whether we like it or not. And so we really need to think about these things that are listed here at the screen, how we're presenting ourselves, the attitude that we're putting forth, and how people perceive it, our written and verbal communication, and what that is, signaling to other people, our level of professionalism, and how, again, usually that comes down to our communication style, how we are communicating with others, and of course, our integrity. So I think what's really big here, it's not on the screen, but it kind of is encapsulated in all of this, is self-awareness. And it's very difficult because sometimes you'll see people who have the word humble in their headline on LinkedIn. I'm a humble person. Usually those people are not humble, right? But they might be, hopefully. But self-awareness is not only understanding how you perceive yourself to be, it's also having an awareness of how others perceive you, and making sure that you have that alignment of how I am. Maybe you want to, think about whatever it is, how you want to show up in the world. Is that how other people are receiving you or perceiving you? And if you have some close family or friends that you can turn to and say, here's how I want to be showing up as a professional, maybe ask some former colleagues who are good friends, make it a real conversation. You really have to look in the mirror and think, how do I want others, again, to perceive me? And is that what I am communicating with through my text messages, my WhatsApp messages, my emails, and so on? When we work across boundaries and across cultures, this becomes even more important. And I was sharing with OG, I'm reading this book called The Culture Map. And I can put it in I'll just share a link to it with Roshan so we can share it as a follow-up. And I highly recommend, if anyone is considering working in a cross-cultural setting, it's so fascinating. I'm laughing out loud at some of the things I'm reading because I've experienced the examples this author is sharing of misunderstandings between different cultures and the way that people work best. And this is at like high levels of companies with Nestle, Mitsubishi, talking about really high level leaders totally misunderstanding each other because they're missing the cultural mark. And when you take a moment to step back and think about how other cultures are functioning and what they're looking for in terms of professionalism, and then maybe what your culture or what your lived experience values for professionalism, you need to find where there's that intersection and maybe how both sides can adapt or at least manage expectations and be clear about what is the norm in whatever workplace that you're where you are. And I'll just say here, this is where networking can be so valuable because, if you want to have a global remote opportunity, of course, it's really helpful to know somebody else who has one of those types of jobs. And then to be able to ask them questions about what's it really like to be working there? What's it like? Presumably, if it's a global remote job, it is going to be an intercultural job as well. And asking them questions about how they feel they either are adapting as a professional or what they're learning, is the norm in that company. And companies who are really good about setting policies around remote work. Some of them are like Buffer, BUFFER, Doist, DOIST. They have manuals that really outline norms. And I think that it's something that you can learn from if you're trying to understand how, and I'll share this with Roshan so we can put it in the follow-up. But to get an idea of how to position yourself well for global remote opportunities is understanding how other people are thriving in those types of roles. So I want to respect our time. I know we want to leave time for questions, but OG, is that good?
Yes, it does. It does. And I think as you were speaking, maybe, for my fellow Nigerians, just to try to use examples to buttress what Jennifer is talking about. So as Kathy said in the beginning, how we are always speaking to employers and speaking to learners, because it's very important for us to deliver that, job ready skills and things like that. So we hear feedback all the time. And, I'll give you like just 3 examples of things that, you know, we've gotten that feedback from employers about Nigerian applicants for remote jobs. And, you know, to me, I understand where it's coming from, but I can see how, you know, they don't understand it. So it's important that I want to use that as an example. So, you know, when Jennifer talked about that self-awareness, that you think this is the way you're presenting yourself, but it's being received, you know, differently. So one example is communication that is invasive, right? So when there are proper channels for communicating and you leave that channel and, you know, you email everyone, you know, there is a point where it becomes to come across as invasive on the global stage. So maybe locally it makes sense. After all, you just have to make sure you don't leave any stone unturned. But on the global stage, it may come across as invasive. We welcome escalations, but escalations without giving the process time to work or a chance to work on the global stage, you know, can easily be tagged invasive. And those kind of views are not positive, and they can affect, you know, the very thing you're going after. So I also understand that it can be frustrating and you know, you can be very anxious when you're looking for an outcome, but to then use language that's kind of aggressive or even threatening because you really want to get an outcome on the global stage, it can never really be excused, right? And that's something we just have to be conscious about, because maybe sometimes our own environment, we have to respond a certain way to get certain results. But on the global stage, we might have to be self-aware enough to kind of dilute that a little bit so that at least it can align with the global expectations. Continuous messaging, right? That now borders on pestering and harassment. What we, at least in Nigeria, need to realize is that the global definition and threshold for harassment is a lot more sensitive than we are used to. So it's, you know, I wanted to pull that out because, you know, I've sat in meetings and I've listened to that. And to me, I just smile because I can see that it's just really that cultural difference in terms of threshold, you know, definition, and then, but in writing and in an interview, it then communicates either you're being invasive or you're kind of pestering or you're kind of beginning to harass this potential employer. And those sort of things are examples of, you know, things that just happen because it's part of the culture and the environment in which we are raised. But when you present yourself to the global stage, you know, then you have to hold up a mirror to just obviously be mindful so that you don't deny yourself opportunities that you're really after. So again, we have very few minutes. I'm going to hand over to Kathy just to touch on integrity, and then we can go into Q&A. We can see some of your questions already coming up. Over to you, Kathy.
Thank you so much. The integrity question is one that, in my mind, isn't cultural. It is global, right? We all have to have personal integrity, professional integrity, and we want to be perceived as someone that you can trust and someone that you can count on, and that you're making the right choices, whether someone's watching or whether someone's not watching. We had an interesting situation a week or so ago where we received from one of our alumni a letter on Nexford letterhead. And that is one of those concerns about integrity, because Nexford letterhead is only to be used by Nexford staff, faculty, right? It comes from us to someone else. So when we received a letter from one of our alumni on letterhead, first of all, we were a little surprised because we don't know where they got that, but we also realized that that is a breach, because you, in other words, have taken something that doesn't belong to you, that you shouldn't be using, and we're using it. That's just an example. But we just want to make sure, as you're teaching classes, we always are looking at integrity. We think about plagiarism, right? You all know that's been an issue. You've all graduated. You haven't had that issue. So we just want to talk about the fact that integrity is something that we all possess internally, and it's a global expectation. That's all I wanted to say about that. So maybe we're ready for some questions.
Indeed. Thank you so much, Kathy. And you know, and just to again buttress that point about, you know, falsification of information in the workplace, it can be very costly. I mean, I'm sure we saw in the news with the guy from Citibank, and it wasn't a big deal in his mind, but it cost him his job. And even though it took his employer to court, the judge still found him wanting because he wasn't honest at the first instance. So little things like that, not being honest, even when you have made a mistake, not being honest in the first instance will always be wrong in any country. And if you're saying you want to present yourself for global opportunities, whose thresholds for such things are very, I don't know whether that's high or low, but it's very sensitive. I just think that for our Nigerian alumni, we need to be very conscious, very aware, right, and culturally aware, and work on those sort of things. So thank you so much, everyone. Let's jump into Q&A. I'm going to stop sharing screen so we can see each other. And I think I saw a question. I saw a question that I thought was for me before, but I can't find it. It wasn't Nelson.
We can stop at the top. We can just start at the top and work through them. So
right.
There's
a
learner.
A question from Nelson.
It's under the answered questions, OG. You can see it under the answered tab.
Okay, so I should go to.
Well, and I think maybe if I can hop in here on, we do want to help you find opportunities, and we want to make sure we're getting relevant roles in front of you. That doesn't mean of course, we're going to be able to get you a job, but I'm putting in the chat, and we'll share this in a link as a follow-up, wanting to direct you to quality resources where you can find global remote opportunities. So we will have a Nexford job board coming in the next couple of months, where we're going to be highlighting global remote opportunities, remote and hybrid opportunities, and in person in the countries where we're operating and have a really large presence. And then, of course, ongoing training and workshops and webinars that are highlighting, we had a webinar a few weeks ago with one of our alumni who is working for Microsoft from Nigeria, tech role, remote. He walked through step by step how he landed that role and what he did to prepare himself. And it was a really, actually, if you, I'll look back on our YouTube channel to put the link in this follow-up, because it was just a really stellar session. But again, we want to show you examples of people who are have had the same education experience as you, who are Nexford alumni, so that you can hopefully see yourself in their experiences to identify roles. And yeah, so that's what I'll say for remote opportunities.
One of the next questions is, are there plans for a DBA program yet? We do not have plans for a DBA program yet, because there are many other things that we would need to put into place before we could have one. You have to have certain committees and certain things in place when you put a DBA, and we have not started working on that yet. The next one is asking whether we're going to apply for WASC. We don't have any plans to apply for regional accreditation at this time. Right now, we just earned our accreditation in January. We have submitted candidacy papers to IACBE, which is a programmatic accreditor in the business field. We should learn whether we've been accepted as a candidate in the next month or so, but we don't have plans at this time to seek regional accreditation.
Jennifer, did you want to weigh in on that as well? I see.
No. I was just clicking that. Oh, certainly not. I will never talk about accreditation.
Orikoya, I don't know if did you join the call late? Because we touched on Nexford's mission and they kind of explained where. So maybe if someone on the call can reach out to Orikoya to help him to explain our mission, what's within scope, what we want to do, what we don't want to do, and how WES is not an accreditation, and we're not really set up for immigration purposes. We're really just trying to get people to be economically and socially mobile. So please, Orikoya, if you can reach out to your colleagues, they might provide explanations that have been shared earlier.
Are there any other questions at this time?
For those who put their questions in the chat, have your questions been answered? If not, please paste them in the Q&A box to enable us pick them up.
I'm not sure if I understand this question. For a reference request that needs an email address of the referrer, how can we follow up if such email was received by Nexford? So what you're saying is if an external person requested a reference for one of our learners? Because I'm not, so if whomever, go ahead.
I think that's what they're trying to say, that if the reference was received from an external source, if we would be able to provide the designated names and email of the individual that is providing the reference. So if our registrars team would be able to do that.
Oh, so if they sent an email address, for example, to the SA team and said, I need a reference. And then the SA team typically goes to a faculty member that this learner had and requests the reference. They want to know if they can find out whether or who is going to actually be sending the reference.
Correct.
That's a good question. I don't know the answer to that, but typically any request like that we would have received would be in our system. So we should be able to go into our system whenever we get requests. Those are all tracked so that we have that. We should be able to find that information. But let me see what I can find, and maybe Libo can get back to you with the answer to that question. Thank you.
Sure.
Kathy, do you want to take Olalekan's question on the issue of discounts to the MBA MSDT?
I don't actually have any idea what the discounts are. That would actually be a marketing question. It wouldn't come to me because I don't really deal with that very much. And I think, Libo, did you have something about that in your, or who to contact?
Sorry, Oji. So for the MBA, the application specialist team would be able to advise on the various scholarships that would be available. But for the MSDT enrollment, we do have a 15% scholarship available to all our alumni who are interested in enrolling. And they also do have the option to transfer their credits over from their MBA if they're looking to enroll for the MSDT program.
There also is the next question is, do you still have the opportunity to view the NXU platform after graduating, having the opportunity to view course materials, etc.? There is a fee that you can pay to do that, because every time someone goes online with Canvas, which is our NLS, you all know that, you are paying a fee for that. So there is an alumni fee that gives you access to several different or a graduate fee. I'm not sure, Libo, maybe you can address that. I believe there's a fee and you can register to do that.
Yes, so that's the Alumni Access subscription that you can register for if you are interested in subscribing to Alumni Access, which gives you access to about 16,000 plus LinkedIn learning courses. You have access to Microsoft 365 as well as all your basically your full Canvas platform at a cost of $15 per month for the subscription. You do have the option to pay for yearly subscription at $150 per year at 2 months free of charge, basically. So if you are interested in subscribing for Alumni Access, you can email alumni@nexford.org and I will forward the information through to you.
Okay. Thanks. I would like to ask Obiageli when she sent the email. Again, these are some of the things we want to also start to manage so we can work better together. So I think when Lebo spoke earlier, she kind of shared the SLAs with you, 24 to 48 hours. So again, sometimes also, if you have a specific situation where you've sent an email and you haven't gotten a response, for a week, for example, please, email Lebo and so that she knows, because what happens is sometimes things are still within our SLAs and then you conclude that you are being ignored and then you take that and you amplify it as some kind of general problem. So those things, can be damaging, and it's not actually factual. So please, Obiageli, if this has been lingering for, more than the SLAs that we've defined, because it really depends on the inquiry, please send Lebo a note and let her know when you send this email with the details. Then we can track it in our system to see if something has fallen through the cracks. The other thing I wanted to address is, Orikoya, your comment or your question is exactly why we've, at least for me joining as country director, when I see some of the requests that come through, it is important for us to maintain certain lines. There is only, Nexford has not even finished answering all the questions about Nexford. Imagine you asking us what Canada would take, what Canada won't take, what NYC would do, what, so there are certain things we want to really learn to respect other institutions who have their own management, they have their own laws, they have their own policies. So sometimes don't ask us questions that are beyond our, because they belong to another institution. If that information, because the best we can do is direct you to that institution's website, right? Because how else would we know what they would do, right? And then there will be sometimes subjective things, right? Because some things depends. So I've gone on the NYC website where they've said, listen, you can submit your things to us, and if we're not even comfortable, we'll reach out to Ministry of Education. At what point does Nexford have sufficient information to share with you? So please, it's important for this, as we build our relationship together, is to manage expectations, to say we would not put ourselves in a situation where we're speaking for a country or another organization, because we will be ill-informed. We'll be ill-informed, right? So please try and bear that in mind. When you say if MBA is acceptable in Canada, I think Kathy has already spoken to that there are schools we work with. What doesn't accept Nexford, it's their thing, is what they've decided against criteria that has nothing to do with the credibility of the degree that we offer, or whether we're accredited and things like that. So please bear that in mind, for next time. Okay, over to you, Lebo. We're almost out of time. We have 1 minute left. So if there are any final questions so that we can close. Okay. Okay, doesn't sound like there are any other questions. Any final comments from the panelists?
My final comment is I hope everyone will join our digital transformation webinar tomorrow. Fadil has a couple of really exciting guests, and I know that sometimes webinars seem like a slice of time, and how important are they? But it's such a great opportunity to have, be able to ask these panelists directly questions that you have. This theme is on digital transformation. Again, we'll include a link to register in the follow-up. But I think that the speakers look really, really interesting, and I'm excited to listen live.
Thanks, Jennifer. Kathy, quick one. Is there a way for the higher education institutions that kind of next, and the thing is, so to your question, you see, we won't speak for all universities in Canada, whether they accept, because those are their own personal choices, but we can share the ones we have relationships with. But you see, that is not going to be some exhaustive list of what all schools in Canada do. So we only, and it still won't speak to what those schools will do. It will only tell you that, we have a relationship with them. So, Kathy, is that something we can share?
Yes, and I believe we do share that.
Okay.
Lebo has that list, and I believe she shares that.
Okay, so
yes,
Lebo can get that to you, Mutio. Okay, so I think I just want to thank everyone so much. Thank you for your time. Thank you for your great questions. Thank you to the panelists for all of the information you've shared. We really want to keep the channel open to our darling alumni, and we'll try to see how frequently we can have this so we can, clarify. So even within our little community, I'm sure there are still miscommunications and misexpectations. So we'll try and do this from time to time so we can answer your questions. But before then, you have all the email addresses. Lebo will make them available again. Let us know what's troubling you. But please, let's also manage expectations about what, Nexford cannot do everything, right? But we're here to definitely help and support. So thank you very much.
Thanks, OG. Thanks, everybody, for attending.
Bye, everyone.
Thanks,
Thank you.
everyone.
Bye-bye.
Thanks, everyone. Have a good afternoon. Bye-bye.
You too. Bye.